Jack Mallory stared at the clock on the microwave. 8:47 p.m. Delilah was supposed to be home at 6. No call, no text. It was the third time this week that he sat at the kitchen table, a systems diagram half completed on his laptop. The house was too quiet except for the occasional click of his keyboard. From upstairs came the muffled sound of Finn playing a video game, probably to drown out the silence that had become the soundtrack of their home. Jack closed his computer and rubbed his eyes. 12 years of marriage had come to this, working late to avoid conversation, sleeping with their backs to each other, and communicating through short, clipped sentences about schedules and bills. The front door opened with a soft click. Delilah's perfume reached the kitchen before she did. Something new, something he hadn't bought her. Traffic was terrible, she said without meeting his eyes. She dropped her purse on the counter and kicked off her shoes. Jack didn't respond immediately. He noticed her slightly smudged lipstick, the way she wouldn't look directly at him. Finn waited dinner for you. I made him eat at 7. He shouldn't have. I told you I'd be late. She poured herself a glass of wine, still avoiding his gaze. No, you said you'd be home by 6. His voice remained even controlled. Delilah rolled her eyes. God, Jack, do we have to do this tonight? I had a long day. Doing what exactly? His question hung in the air between them. She took a long sip of wine. Work stuff. You wouldn't understand. Try me. Jack's face remained impassive, but his fingers tightened around his coffee mug. It's just marketing meetings, brand positioning, client dinners. She waved her hand dismissively. It's complicated. I design aircraft navigation systems, Delilah. I think I can follow along. His tone remained flat, factual. The silence stretched between them like a rubber band ready to snap. I'm going to check on Finn, she finally said, leaving her wine half-finished. Jack watched her climb the stairs, noting how she glanced at her phone before knocking on their son's door. He heard her voice shift into what he privately called her mother mode. Higher-pitched, overly enthusiastic, the voice she used when she wanted something or when others were watching. 20 minutes later, Jack stood in the hallway as Delilah emerged from Finn's room. He's worried about us, she whispered, a perfect crease forming between her eyebrows. And what did you tell them? That we're fine. That parents sometimes have rough patches. She looked at Jack expectantly, as if waiting for him to contradict her. He just nodded. Good night, Delilah. That's it. That's all you have to say. Her voice rose slightly. Jack shrugged. What else is there? He walked past her to Finn's room and knocked softly. Finn sat cross-legged on his bed, a chess set laid out before him. At 12, he had Jack's analytical mind and thoughtful eyes, but the wariness in his expression, that was new. Playing against yourself again? Jack asked, sitting on the edge of the bed. Finn, moving a knight. It's the only way to get better. Both sides need to play their best. Jack studied the board. Black's in trouble. Black always thinks 3 moves ahead. White only thinks 1. Finn looked up at his father. Mom said you guys are fine. Jack considered his next words carefully. Your mom and I are going through some things, but nothing for you to worry about, all right? Finn's eyes narrowed slightly. That's what she said too. Almost exactly. Great minds or practiced lines. Finn moved his bishop. Jack studied his son with a mixture of pride and sadness. When had he gotten so perceptive? It's late. School tomorrow. Finn began putting the chess pieces away. Dad? Yeah. If you and Mom, if something happens, I don't want to live with Grandma Marta. Jack felt something cold settle in his stomach. Nothing's happening, but you know I'd never let that happen. Promise. I promise. Jack ruffled his son's hair. Now sleep. As he closed Finn's door, he heard Delilah's voice from their bedroom. She was speaking softly, but the hushed, intimate tone was unmistakable. I can't tonight. He's suspicious. No, of course not. I miss you too. Jack didn't need to hear more. He walked downstairs and slept on the couch, staring at the ceiling until dawn broke. The next morning, Jack drove Finn to school, the silence between them comfortable in a way it never was with Delilah anymore. "Chess club today?" Jack asked as they pulled up to the school entrance. Finn nodded. "Tournament next week. I'm playing third board." "Good. That's great." Jack hesitated. "Listen, Finn, no matter what happens between me and your mom, I want you to know that." "Dad," Finn cut him off. "I know." He grabbed his backpack and opened the car door. "See you at 5. 5 sharp," Jack confirmed. As Finn jogged toward the school building, Jack's phone buzzed with a text from Delilah's mother. "Brunch today. Need to discuss Delilah's birthday plans." The usual place. Jack grimaced. Marta Reese had never approved of him. In her eyes, her daughter had married beneath her, choosing a pragmatic engineer over the type of flashy executive Marta had envisioned for her only child. "Can't today. Deadline at work," he replied, feeling no guilt at the lie. Almost immediately came the response. "Still the same Jack. All work, no family. No wonder she's unhappy." He put the phone away without responding and drove to work, his mind already calculating possibilities and outcomes like the systems he designed. If Delilah was having an affair, and all evidence pointed to that conclusion, then he needed to prepare. Not to save the marriage, that ship had sailed, but to protect Finn. 3 days later, Jack sat in his home office after midnight, reviewing their credit card statements. The pattern was clear. Lunch charges at places Delilah claimed to hate, hotel bar tabs in the afternoon when she was supposedly at yoga, a jewelry purchase 2 days before Valentine's Day that he'd never seen. And then there were the texts. He wasn't proud of looking at her phone while she showered, but he needed confirmation. The messages to TM left little doubt. "Miss your hands already. 4 hours isn't enough. When can I see you again? Jay will be at his conference next week. You're my reward for putting up with this life." Each message was a knife, but Jack felt oddly detached, like he was analyzing a failing component in a system, not the death of his marriage. The shower stopped running. Jack quickly returned to his computer, switching screens to a work project. Delilah appeared in the doorway, wrapped in a towel. "Coming to bed?" she asked, her voice holding a sweetness that hadn't been there in months. "Soon. Need to finish this section." She lingered. "You've been working late a lot." "So have you," he replied without looking up. Delilah sighed dramatically. "All you do is work. Do you even notice I'm here anymore?" Jack finally looked at her. "I notice everything, Delilah." Something in his tone must have registered because her expression changed subtly. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing. Go to bed. I'll be up soon." After she left, Jack opened a new document and began making notes. Dates, times, expenses, evidence. He wasn't going to confront her. Not yet. First, he needed a plan. "Jack can be so controlling sometimes," Delilah said with a practiced sigh, stirring her mimosa with theatrical weariness. Jack, returning from the restroom with her friend at Sunday brunch, paused just out of sight behind a large potted plant. The restaurant buzzed with weekend conversation, providing perfect cover for eavesdropping. "Really?" Lisa, their longtime friend, sounded surprised. "He's always seemed so steady." "That's what everyone thinks." Delilah leaned forward conspiratorially. "But at home, he keeps track of every penny I spend, questions where I go, who I see, and he's emotionally unavailable, then gets angry when I make plans without him." Jack felt a cold anger settle in his chest. The systematic dismantling of his character had begun, and with friends they'd known for years. He waited 30 seconds, then approached the table with a neutral expression. "Sorry about that. What did I miss?" Lisa looked uncomfortable, but Delilah smiled brightly. "Just girl talk." Later that afternoon, Jack stood in the kitchen preparing dinner while Finn worked on homework at the table. Delilah had left for coffee with the girls shortly after they'd returned home. "Dad," Finn looked up from his math worksheet. Is everything okay with you and Mom? Jack set down the knife he was using to chop vegetables. Why do you ask? I heard her talking to Grandma Marta on the phone yesterday. She said you were. Finn hesitated, clearly uncomfortable. It's okay. What did she say? She said you were suffocating her, but she needed space. Finn's eyes dropped back to his homework. And Grandma said something about how nobody would blame her if she left. Jack carefully resumed chopping. Adults sometimes go through rough patches. Finn, your mom and I are working through some things. Are you getting divorced? The directness of the question startled Jack. He set the knife down again and sat across from his son. I don't know. Would it upset you if we did? Finn considered the question with the same careful deliberation he gave to chess moves. I don't like how quiet the house is now, or how you and Mom pretend everything's okay when other people are around. Jack nodded. I don't like that either. If you get divorced, who would I live with? There was the question that had been keeping Jack up at night. What would you want? Finn didn't hesitate. You. The simple declaration hit Jack harder than he expected. He swallowed the sudden lump in his throat. Then that's what we'd figure out. The front door opened, and Delilah's voice called out. I'm home. She appeared in the kitchen doorway, her smile tight and eyes assessing the scene before her. Jack and Finn, and what appeared to be a serious conversation. Well, my boy's up to. Her voice carried a false brightness. Homework and dinner, Jack replied evenly. Her phone buzzed in her purse. She glanced at it, and her expression changed momentarily, softening in a way Jack hadn't seen directed at him in months. About to make a quick call, she said, already turning away. Work stuff. On Sunday? Jack asked. She paused. The Henderson account. It's a mess. She hurried upstairs without further explanation. Jack and Finn exchanged a look. That wasn't a work call, Finn said quietly. Jack nodded. I know. The following Tuesday, Jack sat in his car outside Marta Reese's upscale condominium complex. Delilah had told him she was working late, but her car was clearly visible in her mother's visitor parking space. He wasn't proud of following her, but he needed to understand what he was up against. 15 minutes of waiting paid off when Delilah emerged with her mother. They stood talking beside Delilah's car, unaware of his presence several spaces away. Jack couldn't hear their words, but their body language told him enough. Marta's expression was animated, her hands gesturing emphatically as she spoke. Delilah nodded repeatedly, occasionally wiping at her eyes in what Jack recognized as her practiced emotional distress. Routine, the same one she used when trying to get her way at parent-teacher conferences. As Delilah got in her car, Marta spotted Jack. Her expression froze, then transformed into a smile that never reached her eyes. She waved with exaggerated friendliness, then immediately pulled out her phone, presumably to warn Delilah. Sure enough, Jack's phone buzzed moments later with a text from his wife. Why are you spying on me? He didn't respond. Instead, he started his car and drove to the one place he knew would offer clear perspective, his old friend Renee's house. Renee Baylor answered her door in sweatpants and a faded military academy t-shirt, her short gray-streaked hair uncombed. Jack, what's wrong? Everything, he said simply. 20 minutes and 1 beer later, he'd laid out the situation. Renee, now a school counselor after 15 years in the military, listened without interrupting. When he finished, she leaned back in her chair. She's setting you up, Renee said bluntly. The character assassination, the secret meetings with her mother, the unexplained absences. She's building a narrative. Jack nodded. For divorce. Not just divorce. She wants to win. And in her mind, winning means taking everything. The house, public sympathy, maybe even Finn. Jack's grip tightened on his beer bottle. That's not happening. Then you need to get ahead of this. Renee's expression was grim. Document everything. Every unexplained absence, every unusual expense. Get a lawyer, not just any lawyer, but someone who specializes in high-conflict divorces. I've already started keeping records. Good. And Jack, Renee fixed him with a serious look. Don't confront her yet. Let her think she's winning. The element of surprise will be your only advantage. Jack nodded, already mentally compiling a battle plan. I should get home before she starts wondering where I am. As he drove home, Delilah called. He put the call on speaker. Where are you? Her voice was sharp with accusation. I was with a friend. I needed to clear my head. After stalking me and my mother's. Jack kept his voice calm. I wasn't stalking you, Delilah. I was driving by and saw your car. So now you're checking up on me, controlling where I go. He recognized the tactic, twisting his actions to fit her narrative. I'm heading home now. We can talk then. Don't bother. I'm going to bed. Finn's already asleep. She hung up before he could respond. When Jack arrived home, the house was dark except for a single lamp in the living room. He checked on Finn, who was indeed asleep, then went to his home office instead of the bedroom. He opened his laptop and began researching divorce attorneys in their area. An hour later, his phone buzzed with a text from a number he didn't recognize. She doesn't deserve you. Never did. Renee looking out for him as she had since they were 18-year-old freshmen in college. He allowed himself a small smile, his first genuine one in weeks, and continued his research. 3 weeks of uneasy silence followed. Jack and Delilah operated like satellites in distant orbits, communicating only when absolutely necessary. The credit card charges continued. Restaurants, hotels, and an expensive watch from a boutique downtown. But Jack said nothing. He focused instead on Finn, helping with science projects, attending chess tournaments, creating memories and stability in a house that felt increasingly like it was built on quicksand. Bishop to e4, Finn said, moving his piece across the board. They sat in their favorite coffee shop, the Saturday afternoon sun streaming through the windows. Jack studied the board, noting the trap Finn had laid 3 moves ago. Knight takes bishop. Check, Jack countered. Finn frowned, reassessing the board. I didn't see that. You were focused on your attack. Left your king exposed. Like Mom is doing to you. Finn asked quietly. Jack looked up sharply. What do you mean? Finn kept his eyes on the chess pieces. She's so busy texting the guy Trevor that she doesn't notice what's happening around her. Jack's heart stuttered. Trevor, the guy from the gym. The one she calls TM in her phone. Finn moved his king out of check. I saw his name when her phone was on the counter. She calls him her reward. Jack struggled to keep his expression neutral. How do you know all this? I'm 12, Dad, not blind. Finn's eyes finally met his. Are you going to do something about it? Before Jack could answer, his phone buzzed with a text from Delilah. We need to talk when you get home. Important. Looks like I might be doing something sooner than I planned, Jack said, showing Finn the message. Finn's face fell. Is this it? Are you guys getting divorced? Jack reached across the table and placed his hand on Finn's shoulder. Whatever happens, you and I are a team. Remember that. They finished their game in silence. Jack allowed Finn to win despite seeing 3 different paths to checkmate. Some victories were more important than others. The house was unusually clean when they arrived home. Delilah sat at the kitchen table, hands folded primly before her. She'd done her hair and makeup, the full armor she wore when she wanted to be seen as the victim. Finn, go to your room, please, she said without preamble. No, Jack countered calmly. Whatever you have to say, you can say in front of him. He's old enough. Delilah's mask slipped momentarily, revealing a flash of anger before the wounded expression returned. Fine. Have it your way. She took a dramatic breath. I want a divorce. Jack nodded. Okay. This clearly wasn't the response she expected. Her eyes narrowed. Okay. That's all you have to say. What do you want me to say, Delilah? That I didn't see this coming. That I don't know about Trevor. Her face paled slightly. I don't know what you're talking about. Trevor Marks. Your trainer. The one you've been seeing for at least the past 4 months. Finn stood quietly beside his father, watching the exchange with solemn eyes. "You've been spying on me." Delilah's voice rose, shifting to outrage. "No, I've been paying attention." Jack kept his voice level. "The late nights, the new perfume, the charges for hotels and restaurants you claim to hate. It wasn't difficult to piece together. You're toxic, Jack. Controlling. Emotionally unavailable." She was repeating phrases Jack had overheard her rehearsing with friends. "I deserve to be happy." "So do I," he replied simply. "So does Finn." The doorbell rang, interrupting the standoff. Delilah's expression shifted to something like triumph. "That's my mother. I asked her to come support me for this conversation." Of course she had. Jack walked to the door, Finn trailing behind him. Marta Reese stood on the porch, designer handbag clutched like a shield, her gray hair perfectly coiffed. "Jack," she acknowledged coldly before pushing past him into the house. Her face softened when she saw Finn. "There's my darling boy." Finn stepped back, avoiding her attempted embrace. Marta's smile faltered, but she quickly recovered and made her way to the kitchen where Delilah waited. Jack and Finn followed, finding Delilah now standing with her mother's arm around her shoulders. "I've tried to make this work," Delilah said, her voice trembling with manufactured emotion. "But I can't do it anymore. I've already spoken to a lawyer." "I'm sure you have," Jack replied. "I'm taking the house," she continued, gaining confidence, "and the car, and the dog." "And Finn?" Jack asked quietly. Delilah and Marta exchanged a glance. "You get the kid," she said dismissively. Marta actually laughed. "At least the dog's trained." The silence that followed was absolute. Finn's face had gone completely white. "Say that again," Jack said, his voice dangerously soft. Delilah at least had the decency to look embarrassed. "Mom, stop. I didn't mean it like that." She turned to Finn. "Honey, I just meant that Dad has always been better with the day-to-day stuff. You'd be happier with him." Finn looked at his mother with an expression far too old for his 12 years. Without a word, he turned and walked upstairs. They heard his bedroom door close with a quiet click. "Well, that went well," Marta said sarcastically. Typical Jack, turning the child against his mother. "I didn't say a word," Jack pointed out. "You didn't have to," Delilah snapped. "Your whole martyr routine speaks volumes." Jack looked between the two women, so similar in their practiced outrage and calculated manipulations, and felt a strange sense of clarity. This had been inevitable from the start. "I'll have my lawyer contact yours," he said calmly. "In the meantime, I think you should stay at your mother's. Finn and I will remain here. This is my house." Delilah's voice rose to a shout. "Actually, it's our house. And since you're the one who wants out, you should be the one to leave." Jack held her gaze steadily. "Unless you want to explain to Finn why he has to pack up and move while you bring your boyfriend here." Delilah's face contorted with rage. "You can't do this." "I'm not doing anything, Delilah. You are." Jack turned and walked upstairs, effectively ending the conversation. He found Finn sitting on his bed, a book open, but clearly unread. "You okay?" Jack asked, sitting beside him. "Did you know she didn't want me?" Finn's voice was small. Jack chose his words carefully. "I think your mom loves you in her way, but she loves herself more." Finn nodded slowly. "What happens now?" "Now we make a plan," Jack said, putting his arm around his son's shoulders. "And we stick together." Later that night, after Delilah had left with Marta, taking only enough clothes for a week and promising a fight, Finn came to Jack's room. He stood in the doorway, a small recorder in his hand. "Dad, I recorded something you should hear." Jack sat up in bed. "What is it?" "Mom talking to Trevor on the phone last week. She called him her reward for putting up with us." Finn held out the recorder. "She also talked about what she was going to take when she left you." Jack stared at the device, then at his son. "Finn, you shouldn't be recording people without their knowledge." I know, but I thought. Finn hesitated. I thought you might need it. Jack considered the recorder for a long moment. Let me hear it. Finn pressed play, and Delilah's voice filled the room. I can't wait to be done with this. The house, the car, everything. He won't fight. He never does. And Trevor, baby, you're my reward for putting up with all this. For putting up with him. A male voice responded. What about the kid? Jack can have him. I'm not cut out for the single mom life. Finn stopped the recording. His expression was unreadable. Jack pulled his son into a tight hug. Don't say anything about this recording yet. Okay, I have a plan. What kind of plan? The kind where the truth wins. Jack looked into Finn's eyes. Can you trust me on this? Finn nodded. Always. Jack sat in the parking lot of Ohio First Credit Union, watching as the branch opened for the day. He was the first customer through the door at 9 a.m. sharp. I'd like to open a new checking account, he told the young banker who greeted him. And I need to discuss some changes to my existing joint accounts. 40 minutes later, he left with a new account in his name only, having transferred half of their joint savings, precisely half, not a penny more, into it. He'd also frozen their shared credit card and removed his name from Delilah's premium card. The systems engineer in him appreciated the elegant simplicity of financial separation. Next stop, a small lockbox rental at a different bank, where he deposited his grandfather's vintage watch collection, the deed to the cabin his parents had left him, and several other valuables Delilah might claim in the divorce. Not hiding assets, just securing them. Within 2 hours, he'd met with it at his company, changed all his passwords, secured his work laptop with new encryption, and requested that any communications about his employment, salary, or benefits be directed solely to his company email, not their home address. Jack worked methodically through his list, crossing off items one by one. Within 3 days, he had secured everything of importance: financial records, family heirlooms, personal documents. The only item left was the most important. Finn. Dr. Elena Winters, the therapist, introduced herself, extending her hand first to Jack, then to Finn. It's nice to meet you both. Her office was comfortable without being pretentious. Plants in the windows, bookshelves filled with actual books, not just decorative props, and chairs that invited sitting rather than perching anxiously. Thank you for seeing us on short notice, Jack said. Your friend Renee is very persuasive. Dr. Winters smiled. Now, why don't we talk about why you're here? Jack glanced at Finn, who nodded slightly, giving permission. My wife and I are getting divorced, Jack explained. It's going to be contentious. I want Finn to have someone to talk to, someone neutral. Dr. Winters turned to Finn. How do you feel about that, Finn? Like Dad wants to make sure I don't get caught in the middle. Finn's voice was matter-of-fact. And I want that too. You seem very perceptive. He sees more than most adults give him credit for, Jack said. I noticed things weren't right a long time ago. Finn added, Mom changing the way she talked about Dad when she thought I wasn't listening. Dr. Winters nodded. Sometimes children notice the emotional weather in their homes more clearly than the adults do. Will you tell my mom what I say here? Finn asked directly. No, what we discuss is confidential. I'll only share something if I believe you're in danger, or if you give me permission to do so. She looked at both of them. That goes for both of you. I'd like to meet with you individually, she continued. Finn, would you mind if I speak with your father alone first? There's a great waiting area with books and games just outside. After Finn left, Dr. Winters' expression became more serious. Tell me what's really happening, Mr. Mallory. Jack outlined the situation. Delilah's affair, her manipulation, the custody concerns, in the same precise, unemotional manner he used for technical presentations. And you haven't confronted her about the affair directly? Dr. Winters asked. No, she knows that I know, but we haven't discussed details. May I ask why not? Jack considered the question. Because right now, she thinks she's winning. That gives me time to prepare. Prepare for what? For protecting Finn. Jack leaned forward. Look, my marriage is over. I accepted that months ago. But Delilah and her mother think I'm just going to roll over, give up the house, take minimal custody, be the weekend dad who gets pushed further and further to the margins. And you're not going to do that. No, I'm building a case for full custody, documenting her absence, her neglect, her manipulation. When we go to court, I want the judge to see exactly who Delilah is beneath the perfect mother facade. Dr. Winters studied him. Revenge. Justice, Jack corrected. For Finn. He deserves a stable home with a parent who puts him first. And that's you. Yes. Dr. Winters nodded slowly. All right. I'll work with Finn. But I have 2 conditions. Name them. First, this remains a safe space for him. No mining him for information about his mother. No using therapy as a weapon in your divorce. Agreed. What's the second? You get your own therapist. Someone separate from me. This situation is going to get worse before it gets better. You need support too. Jack hesitated, then nodded. Fair enough. As they wrapped up their session, Dr. Winters added one more thing. Mr. Mallory, when you fight monsters, be careful not to become one yourself. Jack smiled thinly. I'm not fighting a monster, Dr. Winters. I'm fighting a chess player who's used to her opponents not seeing 3 moves ahead. That's her mistake, not mine. Over the next 3 weeks, Jack established new routines with Finn. They ate breakfast together every morning. Jack drove him to school and picked him up whenever possible. They worked on homework together in the evenings, played chess, and talked, really talked, about what was happening. Delilah visited sporadically, always announcing her arrival with a text just minutes before appearing, as if catching them unprepared might reveal something she could use. I'm taking Finn to dinner, she declared one Thursday evening, arriving unannounced at the front door. Jack, who'd been helping Finn with a science project, didn't argue. Sure. Be back by 9. It's a school night. Delilah frowned. Since when do you set rules about when I see my son? Since you decided to live elsewhere, Jack replied calmly. 9 o'clock. Finn needs his sleep. Fine. She turned to Finn with a bright smile that didn't reach her eyes. Ready, sweetheart. I thought we'd try that new Italian place downtown. Finn glanced at Jack, who nodded encouragingly. Okay, let me get my jacket. When Finn was out of earshot, Delilah moved closer to Jack, her voice dropping to a harsh whisper. My lawyer says you've removed your name from our credit cards. Yes. And opened your own bank account. Also yes. Her eyes narrowed. You're making this difficult on purpose. I'm being practical. We're getting divorced, Delilah. Financial separation is standard procedure. Nothing with you is standard procedure. She adjusted her designer purse strap. Trevor is excited to meet Finn properly. The calculated attempt to provoke him failed. Jack simply nodded. That's Finn's decision. If he wants to meet Trevor, I won't stand in the way. This clearly wasn't the reaction she wanted. Her face hardened. You've changed. No, Jack corrected her. I'm exactly who I've always been. You're just finally paying attention. Finn returned, and Delilah's expression instantly transformed into maternal warmth. Let's go, baby. I missed you so much. As they left, Jack noticed Finn's stiff posture, the way he maintained distance from his mother, even as she tried to pull him close. The boy caught Jack's eye just before the door closed and gave a small, reassuring nod. Jack spent the evening documenting the interaction and reviewing the file his lawyer had started building. With each piece of evidence, text messages, financial records, witness statements from neighbors who'd seen Trevor coming and going from their house while Jack was at work, the case for full custody grew stronger. When the doorbell rang at precisely 9 p.m., Jack was surprised to find Finn alone on the porch. Where's your mom? She dropped me off. Finn's voice was flat. Trevor was at the restaurant. They're going to his place. Jack nodded, hiding his anger. How was dinner? Trevor kept calling me little man and asking if I was any good at sports. Finn walked past Jack into the house. Mom kept saying how Trevor could teach me to lift weights. Maybe make me more of a man. Jack's hands clenched involuntarily. I'm sorry. She also kept saying things about you. How you were never there for her. How you were distant and cold. Finn turned to face his father. I recorded it on my phone. She didn't notice. Jack sighed. Finn, I appreciate you trying to help, but nothing, Dad. Finn's young face was set with determination. She's lying about you to everyone. I'm not going to just let her do it. Looking at his son, Jack felt a complicated mix of pride and sadness. We'll use the recordings if we need to, but only if we need to. Finn nodded, apparently satisfied. I'm going to finish my homework. As Finn headed upstairs, Jack's phone buzzed with a text from Delilah. Finn had a great time with Trevor. Says he can't wait to see him again. Maybe we can work out joint custody after all. The blatant lies should have angered him. But Jack felt only a cold resolve. He didn't respond to the text. Instead, he opened his email and wrote to his lawyer. Time to move forward. Let's meet tomorrow. Jack always was the quiet one, Delilah said, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. I thought it was because he was thoughtful. Now I realize he was just cold. She sat in Lisa and Mark Baker's living room, surrounded by friends who'd known them for years. Jack had declined the invitation to the dinner party, citing work, a decision Delilah was now weaponizing. How's Finn handling everything? Lisa asked, refilling Delilah's wine glass. He's confused, Delilah sighed. Jack has been filling his head with all sorts of things, trying to turn him against me. Mark frowned. That doesn't sound like Jack. Delilah leaned forward, her voice dropping conspiratorially. There's a lot about Jack you don't know. The control issues, the emotional withdrawal. I've been walking on eggshells for years. Across town, Jack sat in Atticus Null's office, reviewing the evidence they'd compiled. Null, 40-something, sharp-eyed with a reputation for ruthless ethical practice, spread the documents across his desk. She's been busy, Null observed, scanning a printout of social media posts where mutual friends expressed support for Delilah. The smear campaign is in full swing. I expected that, Jack replied. What concerns me is Finn. She's starting to pressure him during their visits. How so? Telling him I never wanted a family. That I blamed her for getting pregnant. None of it true. Jack's expression remained neutral, but his voice tightened. She's also pushing her new boyfriend on him, taking him to restaurants where the boyfriend happens to show up. Null made notes. How's Finn responding? He sees through it. But he's 12. He shouldn't have to deal with this level of manipulation. Evidence of parental alienation strengthens our case, Null said, but we need more than just your word against hers. Jack nodded. Finn's been recording their conversations. Null's eyebrows rose. Without her knowledge. Yes, I didn't ask him to. He started doing it on his own. Complicated, Null muttered. Potentially very useful, but also risky. Ohio is a one-party consent state for recordings, but having a minor record conversation specifically for custody proceedings gets into murky territory. I told him, stop, Jack said, but he's determined to protect himself and me. Null tapped his pen against the desk. Let's keep those recordings as a last resort. In the meantime, I've requested a guardian ad litem for Finn, a court-appointed advocate who will represent his interests specifically. Good. When will that happen? Judge Marshall is reviewing the request now. Should hear back within the week. Noel leaned back in his chair. Now tell me about this boyfriend. Trevor Marks, right? What do we know about him? Jack handed over a folder. Gym trainer. 3 DUIs in the past 5 years, though the most recent was reduced to reckless driving. 2 ex-girlfriends with restraining orders against him. Lives in a studio apartment downtown that he can barely afford. Null whistled low. You've been thorough. I'm an engineer. Being thorough is what I do. Jack hesitated. There's more. He's been showing up at Finn's school events, chess tournaments, science fairs, places where Delilah never bothered to go before. As her guest. As her proxy. Noel asked. Jack corrected. Last week, Finn had a chess match. Delilah had a headache, so she sent Trevor to watch him instead. The coach called me because Trevor was being disruptive, kept yelling out advice during the matches. Noel wrote this down. Did you attend as well? I was already there. I attend all of Finn's events. Jack's voice remained even, but Noel noticed the slight tension in his shoulders. Trevor tried to sit with me, kept talking about how he and Delilah were getting serious, how he was looking forward to being Finn's stepdad. Deliberate provocation, Noel observed. Obvious provocation, Jack corrected. The kind that works on men who can't control their tempers. And how did you respond? I didn't. I moved seats and watched my son's match. A flicker of a smile crossed Jack's face. Finn won, by the way. Trevor left before the trophy presentation. Noel closed his notebook. Keep doing exactly what you're doing. Document everything. Avoid confrontation. Let Delilah and her boyfriend dig their own holes. On the drive home, Jack called to check on Finn, who was staying with Renee for the evening. We're building a model rocket, Finn reported, enthusiasm in his voice for the first time in weeks. Remember the aerodynamics principles I showed you? Jack asked. Yep. Renee says I'm a natural engineer like you. Jack smiled. I'll pick you up at 8. Okay. Okay. Oh, and Dad. Mom called. She wants me to spend the weekend at Grandma Marta's. Jack's smile faded. What did you tell her? That I have a chess tournament on Saturday. Which is true. It is. And I need to be there to take you. That's what I said. Finn's voice dropped slightly. She got angry. Said I was choosing you over her. Jack sighed. I'm sorry, Finn. You shouldn't be put in that position. It's okay, Dad. I can handle Mom. There was a maturity in his voice that broke Jack's heart. Renee says we're building character through adversity. Renee would say that. Jack chuckled. See you at 8. As he ended the call, a text came through from an unknown number. Enjoying your time with my son won't last long. Better lawyer than yours, Trevor. Jack blocked the number without responding and added the text to his growing file of evidence. The battle lines were clearly drawn now. 2 days later, Jack stood at the back of Finn's classroom during the 6th grade science fair. Parents clustered around the various projects, exclaiming over volcanoes, solar systems, and plant growth experiments. Finn's project, a demonstration of how navigation systems triangulate position, had drawn significant attention from the judges. Mr. Mallory, Finn's teacher, Ms. Bentley, approached with a concerned expression. Could I speak with you for a moment? Jack followed her into the hallway. Is something wrong with Finn's project? No, his work is excellent as always. She hesitated. It's about your ex-wife. She called the school this morning asking for copies of Finn's records. Grades, attendance, disciplinary history, everything. Jack frowned. Did you provide them? I explained that we needed proper documentation and both parents' consent for a full records release. Ms. Bentley lowered her voice. She became agitated, said some concerning things about your relationship with Finn. What kind of things? That you were becoming controlling of Finn, that he seemed afraid to displease you. Ms. Bentley looked uncomfortable. Mr. Mallory, I've known Finn for 2 years now. This doesn't match what I see. He's thriving academically, has healthy friendships, and seems more balanced than many children whose parents are divorcing. Jack nodded slowly. My wife and I are in a custody dispute. She's building a case. I gathered as much. Ms. Bentley straightened her shoulders. Just so you know, if I'm called to testify about Finn's well-being and academic performance, I'll speak to what I've actually observed, not what I'm being told to see. Thank you. They returned to the classroom just as Delilah arrived. 40 minutes late, but making an entrance in a designer dress far too formal for a school event. Trevor followed behind her, his muscular frame awkward in a tight button-down shirt. Finn, in the middle of explaining his project to the judges, faltered momentarily when he spotted them. His eyes found Jack, who gave him a reassuring nod. Finn took a deep breath and continued his presentation. Delilah made her way to Finn's table, Trevor in tow. She waited impatiently for Finn to finish with the judges, then pulled him into a tight hug. "My brilliant boy," she exclaimed, loud enough for nearby parents to hear. "I'm so proud of you." Finn endured the hug stiffly. "Thanks for coming, Mom." "Of course I came. I wouldn't miss it." She gestured to Trevor. "Look who I brought to see your project." Trevor clapped Finn on the shoulder with enough force to make the boy wince. "Hey, little man. Smart stuff here. All those computers and wires. Going to be a real geek like your dad, huh?" Jack remained where he was, observing. Finn's discomfort was obvious to anyone paying attention, but Delilah seemed oblivious, or worse, deliberate, as she positioned Trevor beside Finn for photos. "Smile, you too. This is going on my Instagram." She tapped at her phone. "Trevor's going to take you for ice cream after this. Won't that be fun?" Finn glanced at Jack again. "Dad and I already have plans. We're going to the Science Museum." Delilah's smile tightened. "You spend so much time with your father. Don't you want to get to know Trevor better?" "Not really," Finn said quietly. Trevor's face darkened. "Listen, kid, is there a problem?" Jack finally approached, his voice calm. Delilah whirled toward him. "Why can't you let Finn have a relationship with Trevor? Are you that insecure?" Several nearby parents turned to watch the developing drama. Jack kept his voice low. "This isn't the place, Delilah. Finn's project is being judged. Let's not ruin his day." "Always the reasonable one," she hissed. "So everyone thinks you're the good guy while you're poisoning my son against me." "Mom," Finn interrupted, his young voice steady. "I need to talk to the next set of judges. Can we do this later?" The admonishment from her son seemed to jolt Delilah back to awareness of their surroundings. Her public persona reasserted itself immediately. "Of course, sweetie, we're so proud of you." She kissed Finn's cheek, then whispered just loud enough for Jack to hear, "We'll talk about your attitude later." As Delilah and Trevor walked away, Jack met Ms. Bentley's gaze across the room. She nodded slightly. Another witness to add to the record. Later that evening, as Jack and Finn examined the Mars rover exhibit at the Science Museum, Jack's phone buzzed with a text from Atticus Null. "Judge appointed GL for Finn. Ellen Yates. Excellent reputation. First interview, next Tuesday." Jack felt the first real hope he'd had in months. The pieces were falling into place. Renee Baylor's living room had become their unofficial war room. Maps of custody schedules, calendars tracking Delilah's visits and absences, and notes from various witnesses covered the dining table. "The guardian ad litem wants to interview each of us separately," Jack explained, handing Renee a cup of coffee. "You're on her list since you've been providing after-school care for Finn." Renee nodded. "What's your read on her?" "Ellen Yates. Thorough. No nonsense. Seems genuinely focused on Finn's well-being." "Good." Renee sipped her coffee. "How's Finn holding up?" Jack sighed. "Better than he should have to. Delilah's gotten more aggressive with the manipulation. Last week, she told him I was trying to take him away from her forever. Which is exactly what she planned to do to you," Renee observed. "The difference is I never said it to Finn." Jack's voice hardened. "She's using him as a weapon and a witness simultaneously." Renee studied her old friend. She'd known Jack since their freshman year of college, had watched him fall for Delilah, despite her warnings, had seen him build his career and family with quiet determination, and had witnessed the slow erosion of his marriage. Through it all, Jack had maintained the same steady presence, never showing the emotional turmoil she knew must exist beneath the surface. "You're going to win this," she said with certainty. Jack looked up from the calendar he was studying. I have to. You didn't see his face when Delilah said I could have the kid. Like he was an inconvenience. Kids are inconvenient, Renee said matter-of-factly. They're also amazing. Delilah only sees the first part. The doorbell rang, interrupting their conversation. Renee checked her watch. That'll be Ellen Yates. Right on time. Ellen Yates carried herself with the efficient precision of someone who'd seen every type of family drama and couldn't be shocked anymore. In her mid-50s, with silver-streaked dark hair and reading glasses on a chain around her neck, she shook hands firmly and got straight to business. I've reviewed the preliminary filings, she said after settling in with a notepad. I'll be conducting separate interviews with both parents, the child, and key witnesses like yourself, Ms. Baylor. My job is to determine what custody arrangement serves Finn's best interests. Jack nodded. We understand. Good. Ellen adjusted her glasses. Mr. Mallory, I'd like to start with you. Ms. Baylor, would you mind giving us the room? Once Renee had left, Ellen's expression became more focused. Tell me about your relationship with your son. For the next hour, Jack detailed his involvement in Finn's life, from daily routines to long-term educational decisions. He provided records of attendance at school events, medical appointments he'd handled, and the stable environment he created during the separation. And what about before the separation? Ellen asked. Mrs. Mallory claims you were emotionally distant and primarily focused on work. I have a demanding job, Jack acknowledged, but I've always prioritized Finn. You can check with his teachers, coaches, and friends' parents. I wasn't the one missing dinner for work emergencies or skipping parent-teacher conferences. Ellen made notes. Mrs. Mallory suggests you've been alienating Finn from her. I've never spoken negatively about Delilah to Finn. Not once. Jack met Ellen's gaze steadily. I believe children need both parents. All I've done is provide stability while Delilah figures out what she wants. And her relationship with this Trevor Marks. How has that impacted Finn? Jack chose his words carefully. Finn is uncomfortable around Trevor. He's reported to me, and to his therapist, that Trevor makes inappropriate comments and tries to force a relationship Finn isn't ready for. Delilah prioritizes Trevor's inclusion over Finn's comfort. Ellen's pen paused. Has Finn's therapist documented these concerns? Yes, Dr. Elena Winters. She has Finn's permission to share relevant information with you. The interview continued, Ellen probing every aspect of the family dynamics. Jack answered each question directly, providing evidence where he could. When they finished, Ellen closed her notebook. I'll be speaking with Finn tomorrow after school. Is there anything else you think I should know? Jack hesitated. Finn has been recording some of his interactions with his mother, without her knowledge. Ellen's eyebrows rose. That's unusual behavior for a 12-year-old. Finn is unusually perceptive, and he was tired of not being believed. Do you have these recordings? Finn does. He'll decide whether to share them. Ellen studied him for a long moment. You're not what I expected, Mr. Mallory. Based on your wife's statements, I anticipated someone controlling, possibly emotionally abusive. Delilah is creating a narrative that serves her purposes, Jack said simply. I'm focused on what serves Finn's. After Ellen left, Renee returned to the living room. How did it go? Hard to tell. Jack rubbed his eyes. But at least she's thorough. That works in your favor. The more she digs, the more she'll see the truth. Renee sat beside him. What's next? Court date is set for next month. Between now and then, Ellen completes her investigation, and we keep building our case. Jack's phone buzzed with a text. It's Atticus. He wants to meet tomorrow. Says he has new information. About what? Jack's expression darkened as he read the rest of the message. Trevor Marks has a history I didn't know about. One that might change everything. The courthouse hallway buzzed with tense energy. Jack stood with Atticus Null, reviewing last-minute details while Finn sat nearby, uncomfortably formal in a tie and blazer. Remember, Atticus said quietly, Let them make the first mistakes. Delilah's lawyer will try to provoke you. Don't take the bait. Jack nodded. I won't. Across the corridor, Delilah held court with her mother and her attorney. Kendra Slate, a sharply dressed woman known for aggressive tactics in divorce cases. Trevor Marks was notably absent, a strategic decision Jack had predicted after Atticus' investigation revealed Trevor's previous arrests for domestic disturbances. All rise for the Honorable Judge Raymond Phillips. The courtroom formalities proceeded with ritualistic precision. Opening statements established the battle lines. Delilah's side painted Jack as controlling and emotionally unavailable. Jack's side emphasized stability, consistent parenting, and Finn's clear preference. Kendra Slate called Delilah as her first witness. Under careful questioning, Delilah portrayed herself as a devoted mother trapped in a cold marriage. Jack was distant, she testified, her voice carefully modulated to convey suppressed pain. When I tried to discuss our relationship, he would shut down. Work always came first. And how did this affect your son? Kendra prompted. Finn started to withdraw, became anxious about pleasing his father. Delilah dabbed at her eyes. I tried to create enough warmth for both of us. Jack kept his expression neutral, watching Finn's reaction from the corner of his eye. His son's face had gone completely still, the chess player evaluating an opponent's move. Mrs. Mallory, Kendra continued, did your husband support your career aspirations? Not really. He said he did, but there were always comments about my expensive tastes or my social job. Delilah's voice hardened slightly. Marketing wasn't serious work like his engineering. Kendra nodded sympathetically. And since the separation, has Mr. Mallory been cooperative regarding visitation? He interferes constantly, schedules conflicts deliberately, turns Finn against me. Delilah's voice broke convincingly. My own son barely speaks to me now. When Atticus rose for cross-examination, his approach was surgical. Mrs. Mallory, you testify that your husband was distant and work-focused. In the past 3 years, how many of Finn's school events did you attend? Delilah blinked. I don't keep count. Many of them. The school does keep count. Attendance logs show Mr. Mallory attended 38 events in that period. You attended 11. Atticus placed a document before her. Does that refresh your recollection? I had work commitments. Just yes or no, please. Does this document accurately reflect your attendance? Yes, but during the marriage, who primarily prepared Finn's meals? We shared responsibilities. According to your housekeeper's deposition, Mr. Mallory prepared breakfast and dinner most weekdays while you were often running late or attending events. Is that accurate? Delilah's composure slipped slightly. Maria exaggerates. She always liked Jack better. Let's talk about your current living situation. Atticus continued smoothly. You're residing with your mother, correct? Temporarily. And you've been seeing Trevor Marks for how long? Delilah glanced at her lawyer. I don't see how that's relevant. Judge Phillips leaned forward. Please answer the question, Mrs. Mallory. About 6 months, she admitted. 6 months, Atticus repeated thoughtfully. So your relationship began approximately 3 months before you asked for a divorce. Color flushed Delilah's cheeks. That's not. We were just friends at first. Friends who exchanged text messages like this. Atticus handed a document to the judge, then to Delilah. Text from your phone to Mr. Marks, dated February 10. Miss your hands already. 4 hours isn't enough. The courtroom grew very quiet. Delilah stared at the paper. You had no right to access my private messages. These messages were on a family plan phone paid for by Mr. Mallory, with both names on the account. Atticus's voice remained calm. Legally obtained and admissible. The cross-examination continued for another 30 minutes, each question methodically dismantling Delilah's narrative. By the time Atticus finished, she sat rigid with anger, her composed victim facade cracking. Next, Kendra called Marta Reese to testify about Jack's character. I never thought he was right for my daughter, Marta declared haughtily. Too rigid. Too judgmental. Delilah needs someone who appreciates her spirit. And what have you observed of Mr. Mallory's parenting? Kendra asked. He's strict with Finn, always pushing academics, chess, logical thinking. Marta made air quotes. Boys need to run and play, not sit hunched over books all day. Atticus's cross-examination was brief, but devastating. Mrs. Reese, you testify that Mr. Mallory is too rigid. Is that based on his refusal to use your family's influence to advance his career? Marta's eyes narrowed. I don't know what you mean. Let me refresh your memory. At a family dinner 5 years ago, you offered to connect Mr. Mallory with your friend on the board of Axiom Technologies. According to multiple witnesses, when he declined, preferring to advance on merit, you stated, and I quote, "No wonder Delilah complains. You're impossible to help." That's taken out of context. Is it? Atticus handed her another document. This is from your text message to your daughter last month. Once we get custody sorted, we'll make sure Finn gets a proper education. Jack can visit on holidays if he behaves. Marta paled. How'd you get that? Your daughter shared it with Finn. Finn shared it with his father. Atticus smiled thinly. One final question. On the night Mrs. Mallory asked for divorce, were you present? I was there to support my daughter. And did you laugh when she told Mr. Mallory, you get the kid? Did you then add, at least the dog's trained? The courtroom went completely silent. Marta's gaze darted to Finn, who stared back unflinchingly. I would never say such a thing, she huffed. No further questions, Atticus said, returning to his seat. By late afternoon, the judge called a recess until the following day. Jack found Finn sitting alone in the hallway, his tie loosened. You okay? Jack asked, sitting beside him. Grandma lied, Finn said simply. So did Mom. Jack nodded. People sometimes do that when they're scared or desperate. Are you going to lie too? No. Jack put his arm around Finn's shoulders. The truth is messy, but it's all we've got. Finn leaned against his father. The judge seemed surprised when Atticus showed those texts. He's building a picture, Finn, showing who people really are, not who they pretend to be. As they walked toward the parking lot, Delilah intercepted them, her expression tense. I need to speak with Finn. Alone. Jack looked to Finn, who shook his head slightly. Not a good time, Delilah. He's my son too, she hissed. You can't keep controlling everything. I'm right here, Finn said, his voice stronger than either parent expected. And I don't want to talk right now. Delilah's expression hardened. This is exactly what I was testifying about. He's turned you against me. Finn stepped slightly away from both of them. No one turned me against you, Mom. I have eyes. I can see. Before Delilah could respond, Marta appeared behind her. Come, Delilah. We need to regroup with Kendra. As they walked away, Marta turned back to glare at Jack. This isn't over. Not by a long shot. Jack nodded calmly. See you tomorrow. That evening, Jack and Finn sat at their kitchen table, pizza boxes open between them, reviewing the day. What happens tomorrow? Finn asked, picking off mushrooms from his slice. More witnesses. Your therapist will testify, but that will be private in the judge's chambers. Ellen Yates will present her report on what custody arrangement she thinks is best. Finn nodded thoughtfully. Will I have to talk? Only if you want to. The judge might ask you some questions, but you don't have to say anything you're not comfortable with. I want to, Finn said firmly. I want him to hear the truth. Jack studied his son, this resilient, perceptive boy who'd been forced to grow up too quickly. Whatever you decide is fine. I'm proud of you either way. Finn met his father's gaze with the same steady determination. I know, Dad. That's why I need to do this. The second day of court proceeded much like the first, with a parade of witnesses from both sides. Jack's colleagues testified to his reliable character and commitment to Finn. Finn's teachers praised his involvement in school activities. Dr. Winters provided professional insights about Finn's emotional state during the separation. Ellen Yates delivered her report with clinical precision, recommending primary physical custody to Jack with liberal visitation for Delilah. Based on my observation and investigation, she concluded, Finn Mallory has a secure, stable environment with his father. While Mrs. Mallory clearly loves her son, Mr. Mallory has demonstrated more consistent attention to Finn's daily needs and emotional well-being. The morning testimonies painted a clear picture, and Jack could see Judge Phillips' thoughtful expression as he took notes. By afternoon, both sides had presented their cases, and the judge turned his attention to Finn. I understand Finn Mallory is present and has expressed a desire to make a statement, Judge Phillips said, his tone gentling slightly. Is that correct? Atticus stood. Yes, Your Honor. Finn has asked to address the court. Very well. The judge looked directly at Finn. Son, you're not required to speak if you don't want to. This isn't about pleasing either of your parents. Do you understand? Finn nodded, straightening his tie. Yes, sir. All right then. Please come forward. Finn walked to the witness stand with his back straight. A miniature version of his father in posture, but with a determined expression all his own. After being sworn in, he looked out at the courtroom. Thank you for letting me speak, Your Honor, he began, his voice surprisingly steady. I've been listening to everyone talk about what's best for me, and I wanted to tell you myself. The judge nodded encouragingly. Take your time. Finn took a deep breath. I want to live with my dad, not because he told me to say that. He actually told me it was okay to say whatever I really felt, but because he's always been there. For everything. Big things and small things. Delilah made a soft sound of protest that the judge silenced with a look. My mom. Finn hesitated. She loves me. I know that. But she doesn't really see me. Not the real me. She sees the kid she wants me to be. Finn reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. Can I read what Mom texted me last night? Judge Phillips raised an eyebrow. You have it on your phone? Yes, sir. She texted me at 10:42 p.m. The judge glanced at both attorneys, who seemed equally surprised. Go ahead. Finn opened his text messages and began reading aloud. Don't tell the judge about Trevor. Your dad will use it to hurt me. Lie if you have to. Remember, I'll buy you that gaming PC if you help me. The courtroom went completely silent. Judge Phillips leaned forward. May I see that message, please? Finn handed his phone to the bailiff, who brought it to the judge. Judge Phillips examined it carefully, then handed it back. Mrs. Mallory, the judge said, his voice carefully controlled, did you send this text to your son? Delilah's face had drained of color. I was just trying to protect him from being used as a pawn by offering material bribes for false testimony. The judge's eyebrows rose higher. It wasn't like that. Delilah protested, looking desperately to her lawyer. Kendra Slate appeared equally shocked, staring at her client with barely concealed dismay. Finn spoke again. I have other messages too. And recordings. Judge Phillips turned back to him. Recordings? Yes, sir. Of Mom telling me Dad never wanted me. Of her and Trevor talking about me when they thought I wasn't listening. Of Grandma Marta saying they just needed to get through the custody hearing, and then they could fix me so I wasn't so much like my father. The judge's expression darkened. Those are serious allegations, son. I know, sir. That's why I recorded them. So people would believe me. Delilah half rose from her seat. He's just a child. He doesn't understand what he's saying. Mrs. Mallory, sit down. Judge Phillips ordered sharply. Mr. Null, were you aware of these recordings? Atticus stood. I was aware they existed, Your Honor, but I advised my client that we should build our case on direct testimony and documented evidence, not recordings made by a minor. Finn has chosen to bring them forward himself. The judge considered this, then turned back to Finn. Do you understand why recording private conversations without permission might be problematic? Finn nodded solemnly. Yes, sir. Dad told me the same thing. But I also know that in Ohio, only one person in the conversation needs to know about the recording. I looked it up. A flicker of what might have been admiration crossed the judge's face. You did your research. I just wanted the truth to matter, Finn said simply. Judge Phillips studied the boy for a long moment, then nodded. I think we need to take a brief recess. Court will resume in 30 minutes, at which point I'll hear these recordings in chambers with both attorneys present. As the courtroom emptied, Jack remained seated, processing what had just transpired. Atticus leaned over. Did you know he was going to do that? Jack shook his head. No. He mentioned the text from last night, but not the rest. Across the room, Delilah was engaged in a heated, whispered argument with her lawyer. Marta sat with her head in her hands. Finn returned to Jack's side, uncertainty finally showing on his face. Did I do the wrong thing? Jack put his arm around his son's shoulders. No, you stood up for the truth. I couldn't be prouder. When court resumed, the atmosphere had shifted dramatically. Judge Phillips had listened to the recordings and reviewed the text messages. His expression was grave as he addressed the courtroom. In light of the evidence presented today, I'm ordering an immediate independent psychological evaluation of Finn Mallory and a complete forensic analysis of the electronic communications between all parties. He fixed Delilah with a stern look. The attempt to manipulate a child's testimony through bribery is extremely concerning to this court. Delilah appeared to have aged years in the past hour. Her carefully constructed facade had crumbled, leaving her looking small and desperate. Additionally, the judge continued, I'm temporarily awarding sole physical custody to Jack Mallory with supervised visitation for Delilah Mallory, pending the completion of these evaluations. He banged his gavel. Court is adjourned until further notice. As people filed out, Jack and Finn remained seated, letting the crowd thin before making their exit. Atticus shook Jack's hand. The judge will likely make his final ruling within the week. Given what happened today, I'd say our chances are excellent. Jack nodded. Thank you, Atticus. As they finally stood to leave, they found Ellen Yates waiting in the corridor. That was unexpected, she said, with a hint of a smile. Though perhaps it shouldn't have been. Finn is remarkably self-possessed for his age. He always has been, Jack replied, watching as Finn gathered his backpack. Ellen lowered her voice. For what it's worth, I would have recommended full custody to you even without today's revelations. The difference in parenting priorities was clear from the beginning. Thank you for being thorough. Just doing my job. She hesitated. Take care of him, Jack. He's had to grow up faster than he should have. Jack watched Finn carefully folding his tie, methodical even in this small task. We'll be okay. We're a team. The independent psychological evaluation took place over 2 weeks, a series of interviews, tests, and observations that probed every aspect of Finn's relationship with both parents. Jack cooperated fully, answering questions honestly, and providing access to their home, schedules, and daily routines. Delilah's participation was more erratic. She missed one appointment completely, arrived late to others, and became defensive when questioned about her text messages or future plans for Finn. Dr. Marcus Weekly, the court-appointed psychologist, was meticulous in his approach. He visited both homes, Jack's carefully maintained family house and Marta's sleek condominium, where Delilah was staying. He interviewed teachers, neighbors, and friends. He reviewed the recordings Finn had made along with text messages, emails, and social media posts from both parents. Meanwhile, a digital forensics expert examined all electronic communications, confirming the authenticity of Finn's recordings and uncovering a treasure trove of damning evidence. There were messages of Delilah and Marta discussing strategies to win the divorce, Trevor's aggressive texts about putting Jack in his place, and perhaps most disturbing, a systematic campaign to manipulate perception of his father. On a rainy Tuesday morning, Jack sat in the kitchen, helping Finn with a math problem when his phone rang. It was Atticus. "The reports are in," his lawyer said, without preamble. "Both the psychological evaluation and the digital forensics." Jack kept his voice neutral, aware of Finn watching him. "The psychologist's report is unequivocal," Atticus continued. "He's recommending full legal and physical custody to you, with supervised visitation for Delilah, pending her completion of a parenting class and therapy." Jack closed his eyes briefly. The digital evidence. Conclusive. The expert found deleted texts from Delilah to Trevor discussing their plan to move Finn to a different school district once they had custody, one where he'd be less obsessed with academics and more normal. "I see. There's more. Delilah's lawyer called me an hour ago. She wants to discuss settlement terms." Jack looked at Finn, who was pretending not to listen while solving equations. "What kind of terms?" "They know they're losing." Kendra floated the idea of joint legal custody with primary physical custody to you. "No," Jack said firmly. "Not after everything that's happened." "That's what I told her." Judge Phillips has scheduled a hearing for Friday to review the reports and make his final ruling. Atticus paused. "You might want to prepare Finn. Whatever the outcome, Delilah isn't going to take this well." After ending the call, Jack sat beside Finn, who had abandoned any pretense of focusing on homework. "The judge is making his decision on Friday," Jack explained gently. Finn nodded. "He's gonna let me stay with you, right?" "It looks that way. But your mom will still be part of your life." "Finn, that's important. Even after everything she did." There was genuine confusion in Finn's voice. Jack chose his words carefully. "She's still your mother. Her actions were wrong. But that doesn't erase your relationship completely." Finn considered this with his typical thoughtfulness. "I don't hate her, you know. I just don't trust her." "That's fair. Trust has to be earned back." Jack squeezed his son's shoulder. "One step at a time, okay?" Friday morning found them back in the now familiar courtroom. The atmosphere was markedly different. Delilah sat subdued beside her lawyer, her usual perfect appearance slightly frayed at the edges. Marta was nowhere to be seen. Judge Phillips wasted no time. "I've reviewed both expert reports thoroughly. The findings are consistent and concerning." He looked directly at Delilah. "Mrs. Mallory, the evidence indicates a pattern of manipulative behavior toward your son, prioritizing your personal interests over his well-being and attempting to alienate him from his father." Delilah stared at the table, saying nothing. "Mr. Mallory," the judge continued, turning to Jack, "the reports commend your consistent parenting, emotional stability, and commitment to maintaining a healthy environment during this difficult time." Jack nodded once in acknowledgement. "Based on these findings and the evidence presented, I am awarding full legal and physical custody of Finn Mallory to his father, Jack Mallory." The judge's voice was firm but not unkind. "Mrs. Mallory will have supervised visitation, twice monthly, to be gradually increased pending completion of court-mandated parenting classes and therapy." The judge addressed additional matters. The family home would remain with Jack and Finn. Child support would be paid by Delilah. The dog, to Finn's relief, would stay with him. Each pronouncement seemed to diminish Delilah further until she sat with her shoulders hunched, a shadow of her former confident self. When Judge Phillips finished, he looked directly at Finn. "Young man, I want to acknowledge your courage in speaking up. It's not easy to tell difficult truths, especially when they involve the people we love." Finn straightened in his seat. "Thank you, sir. This court is adjourned." The judge banged his gavel one final time. As people began to file out, Jack noticed Trevor Marks slipping out a side door. He hadn't realized the trainer had been watching from the back of the courtroom. The coward hadn't even approached Delilah, who now sat alone at the counsel table, her lawyer already gathering papers to leave. For a moment, Jack felt an unexpected twinge of pity. Then he remembered her words, "You get the kid," and the feeling faded. Outside the courthouse, reporters had gathered, alerted to the high-conflict case by court watchers. Jack guided Finn through the small crowd, declining to comment. As they reached their car, They heard Delilah's voice calling after them. "Jack, wait." He turned, keeping Finn slightly behind him. Delilah stood alone on the courthouse steps, her expression a complex mixture of anger, defeat, and something like bewilderment. "This isn't over," she said, but the usual fire was missing from her voice. "It is, Delilah. For Finn's sake. Accept that. Trevor says we can appeal. Find a different judge." Jack shook his head. "Where is Trevor now? I didn't see him supporting you in there." Her expression faltered. "He had a client session." "Of course he did." Jack opened the car door for Finn. "We'll have the visitation schedule sent to you. Finn will be ready on the appointed days." "Don't do this, Jack. Don't take my son from me." For the first time, genuine emotion cracked through her practiced persona. "I'm not taking him." The court decided based on actions. "Your actions." Jack's voice remained calm. "If you want a relationship with Finn, earn it. Show up. Be consistent. Put him first." He got into the car without waiting for her response. As they drove away, Jack glanced in the rearview mirror. Delilah still stood on the steps, looking lost and small against the imposing courthouse. "Is Mom going to be okay?" Finn asked quietly. Jack considered the question seriously. "She will be. Your mother is nothing if not resilient." She looked sad. Really sad, not pretend sad. "Sometimes it takes losing something to realize its value," Jack said. "Maybe this will be that moment for her." Finn nodded slowly. "Maybe." The first supervised visitation took place 3 weeks after the court ruling. Jack drove Finn to the family center, where a social worker would oversee the 2-hour visit with Delilah. "Remember," Jack said as they parked, "if you feel uncomfortable at any point, you can ask Ms. Rodriguez to end the visit." Finn nodded. "I know, Dad. I'll be fine." Jack watched his son walk into the building with straight shoulders and steady steps, pride mixed with a touch of sadness. No 12-year-old should have to navigate these complex emotional waters. 2 hours later, Finn emerged looking thoughtful, but not upset. "How was it?" Jack asked once they were driving home. "Weird," Finn admitted. "Mom cried, like actually cried, not the fake crying she does." "About what?" "She said she was sorry, that she didn't realize what she was doing." Finn looked out the window. "She asked if I could forgive her." Jack kept his eyes on the road. "What did you tell her?" "That I needed time. That forgiveness has to be earned through actions, not just words." He glanced at Jack. "That's what Dr. Winters always says." "She's right," Jack agreed. "Did your mom accept that?" "I think so. She seemed different, smaller somehow." Finn fell silent for a moment. "Oh, and she said Trevor's gone. They broke up." Jack processed this information without comment. He'd suspected Trevor would disappear once the convenience of the relationship evaporated. Men like that rarely stuck around when situations became difficult. That evening, as Jack was loading the dishwasher, his phone rang with a number he didn't recognize. Against his better judgment, he answered. "Jack, it's Kendra Slate, Delilah's lawyer." "Unexpected. What can I do for you, Miss Slate?" "I've withdrawn as Delilah's counsel," she said without preamble. "I wanted you to know that I've advised her not to pursue an appeal. The evidence is insurmountable, and further litigation would only harm Finn." "I appreciate that." There was a pause. Off the record, I had no idea about the extent of her manipulation. The text messages, the recordings. When Finn presented that evidence, it was the first I'd heard of any of it. "She didn't tell her own lawyer." Jack couldn't hide his surprise. "No. She assured me the case was straightforward. A hard-working mother versus an emotionally unavailable father." Kendra's voice held a note of professional embarrassment. "I've been practicing family law for 15 years. I should have seen through it. People like Delilah are good at presenting the version of reality that suits them," Jack said, finding himself in the strange position of almost comforting his ex-wife's attorney. "Well, I'm sorry for my part in this. Finn seems like a remarkable young man. He deserves better." After they hung up, Jack sat at the kitchen table, turning this new development over in his mind. Without Trevor, without her lawyer, possibly even without her mother's unconditional support, Delilah was facing the consequences of her actions, perhaps for the first time in her life. His phone buzzed with a text from Delilah herself. "Can we talk? Just once, off the record." About Finn. Jack considered ignoring it, then decided against it. For Finn's sake, some form of workable relationship with Delilah was necessary. "When?" "Tomorrow. Coffee shop on Main St. 10 a.m. I'll be there." The coffee shop was neutral territory, a place they had occasionally frequented as a family before the fractures became too deep. Jack arrived precisely at 10, ordered a black coffee, and chose a table near the window. Delilah arrived 5 minutes late. Her appearance was noticeably toned down from her usual carefully constructed image. Her hair was pulled back simply, her makeup minimal, her clothes expensive but not ostentatious. "Thank you for coming," she said, setting down her latte and sliding into the seat across from him. Jack nodded but said nothing, waiting for her to continue. "I know you have no reason to believe anything I say," she began, "but I want you to know that I'm starting therapy. Real therapy, not just the court-mandated sessions. Good, that should help with the visitation schedule eventually." She flinched slightly at his businesslike tone. "This isn't about the visitation schedule, Jack. It's about me realizing what I've done." She took a shaky breath. When Finn looked at me in that courtroom, the disappointment in his eyes, it was like seeing myself clearly for the first time. Jack studied her, looking for the familiar signs of manipulation. To his surprise, he didn't see them. What he saw instead was something he hadn't witnessed in years: genuine vulnerability. "Trevor left," she continued when he didn't respond. "The day of the ruling. Said he didn't sign up for all this drama." She laughed bitterly. "Turns out my reward wasn't much of a prize." "I'm not surprised," Jack said evenly. "My mother and I had a huge fight too. She blamed me for botching the divorce." Delilah stared into her coffee. "I'm staying in a hotel now." Couldn't bear to be around her anymore. Despite everything, Jack felt a flicker of concern. "Are you okay financially?" "I'll be fine. The marketing firm is keeping me on." My boss was surprisingly understanding after I explained everything. She looked up at him. "I don't expect your forgiveness, Jack. I don't deserve it. But I want to be better for Finn." "Actions, not words, Delilah. That's what matters now." She nodded. "I know. I needed you to know that I see what I did wrong. How I hurt both of you." Jack allowed himself to really look at her, this woman he'd once loved enough to marry, to build a life with, to have a child with. Somewhere along the way, she'd lost herself, in her mother's expectations, in societal pressures, in her own insecurities. "For what it's worth," he said finally, "I hope you find what you're looking for, Delilah. And I hope part of that includes being the mother Finn deserves." Tears filled her eyes. "Thank you." As they parted outside the coffee shop, Delilah hesitated. "Jack, one more thing. Finn is so much like you. That steadiness, that integrity. I used to find it frustrating. But now," she shook her head, "now I'm grateful for it. It saved him from becoming like me." Jack watched her walk away, a strange sense of closure settling over him. Not forgiveness, that might never come, but perhaps the beginning of understanding. 6 months later, on a crisp autumn afternoon, Jack and Finn walked Wilson, their golden retriever, through the neighborhood park. The leaves had turned brilliant shades of red and gold, and the air carried the particular clarity of fall in Ohio. "Dad," Finn asked, as they stopped to let Wilson investigate an interesting tree, "do you think Mom's really changed?" The question didn't surprise Jack. Delilah had been consistent with her visitation, had completed her parenting classes, and had gradually begun to rebuild her relationship with Finn. The supervised visits had recently transitioned to unsupervised day visits, and while Jack remained vigilant, he had to acknowledge the visible effort Delilah was making. "I think she's trying," he answered honestly. People can change if they really want to. Finn nodded thoughtfully. Dr. Winters says people rarely change completely, but they can become better versions of themselves if they face their flaws honestly. Dr. Winters is a smart woman. They continued walking, Finn tossing a tennis ball for Wilson periodically. Their routine had stabilized over the months. School, chess club, therapy, weekend activities. The dramatic upheaval of the divorce and custody battle had given way to a new normal that, while different from what Jack had once envisioned for their family, held its own kind of peace. "Mom wants me to spend Thanksgiving at Grandma's," Finn said after a while. "She said to ask you if it would be okay." Jack considered this. Marta had been noticeably absent from Finn's life since the court ruling, whether by her choice or Delilah's. He wasn't sure. "How do you feel about that?" Finn shrugged. "I don't know. Grandma sent me a birthday card last month. It was nice. Not fake nice. Would you be comfortable seeing her?" "Maybe. If you were okay with it." Jack stopped walking and faced his son. "Finn, I want you to understand something. I will never keep you from having a relationship with any member of your family. As long as they treat you with respect, what happened between the adults is separate from your right to know your relatives." Finn studied his father's face. "Even though Grandma was mean to you, even though she helped Mom try to take me away, even then. But you don't forgive them." It wasn't a question. Jack chose his words carefully. "Forgiveness isn't always necessary for moving forward. I don't forgive what they did, but I won't let that stand in the way of your relationships. Does that make sense?" Finn nodded slowly. "Yeah, it does." He threw the ball for Wilson again. "Maybe I'll go for dessert only. Test the waters." Jack smiled at the mature compromise. "That sounds reasonable." Later that evening, after Finn had gone to bed, Jack sat at his desk with a blank sheet of paper before him. He'd been thinking about this letter for weeks. What to say, how to say it, when to share it. He began to write. "Finn, someday when you're older, you'll fully understand what happened between your mother and me. You'll have questions I can't answer now, perspectives I can't give you yet. But there's one thing I want you to know and remember always. You stood up when it counted. That's more than most men ever do. In chess, we learn that every move has consequences. Some are immediate, others play out over time. Life works the same way. The choices we make, to speak truth or remain silent, to act with integrity or compromise for convenience, define who we become. Never let anyone bury the truth, not even when it hurts, not even when it would be easier to look away. The people who truly love you will respect your honesty, even when it's difficult to hear. Those who don't, well, they teach us valuable lessons too. I don't know what kind of man you'll become, but I know you have the foundation of courage and clarity that will serve you well. Whatever path you choose, walk it with the same strength you showed in that courtroom. I am, and will always be, incredibly proud to be your father. Love, Dad. Jack folded the letter and sealed it in an envelope, writing for Finn, "When the time is right," on the front. He placed it in his fireproof box alongside other important documents. Someday, perhaps when Finn graduated high school or faced his own significant life challenge, the time would come to share these words. He went to the fireplace and added a log, watching as the flames grew stronger. From the mantel, he took down the last family photo they'd taken before everything fell apart. A Christmas portrait from the previous year, all three of them smiling for the camera. The perfect family image that had masked the reality beneath. Jack looked at it one last time, then fed it to the flames. He watched as the paper curled and blackened, transforming the false image to ash. Standing before the fire, his expression remained unreadable to anyone who might have observed him. But inside, beneath the calm exterior he presented to the world, Jack felt something he hadn't experienced in years. Victory. Not the hollow victory of winning against Delilah, but the deeper victory of preserving what mattered most, his relationship with his son, built on honesty and integrity. The truth had won, and in the warmth of that knowledge, Jack finally found peace.